What's going on, everyone? Got my coworker and friend Alex.
How's it going?
And his fiance Makayla here. And they're here to learn to work with venomous snakes. Now, Alex has trained with me before, and Makayla's first time is today. So let's get to it. So for this first part, we're going to work with this Nelson's milk snake and hognose snake. And we're going to be teaching Makayla how to use one hook, two hooks, and tailing with the hognose snake, and using one hook and being able to lift up with this Nelson's milk snake. And then also Alex as well, but that'll be a separate video. So for this video, Nelson's milk snake, hognose snake. Next video, vipers. And after that, cobras. And Makayla, ignore the camera. I've already talked with her, ignoring the camera, focusing on what I'm saying. So the camera doesn't matter. This is what I would say and what I've said when talking with Alex, training him as well. So like I mentioned earlier, Alex has some experience. But yeah, let's get started. So the first thing is, well, let me explain first. The hognose snake, the reason I have the hognose snake out, she's calm, very simple working with. I'd prefer to use a bigger king snake, but I don't have a big king snake. And the smaller king snake or milk snake is a little bit more difficult in my opinion when practicing using a hook, since it's more wiggly, more difficult. So we're starting with the hognose snake. Now when using one hook, the balance point is what I always talk about, and not doing repetitive touch. So a lot of times people will keep going, it's going to cause the snake to be on edge now. So the best thing is finding a balance point and lifting straight up. So what I mean by balance point, where she's balanced. This isn't that great. She's falling off, sort of. So that can happen at times. And, yeah, about the not repetitive touch, if you're too far up, waiting. If you can wait, if she's moving, which she isn't, you can just wait a little bit and then lift up at that right moment. So if you'd like to try, I'd first say try it on your own with where you think would be a good place to hook, and we can adjust. Professional. Yeah, go ahead and do it again. Good job. The reason I like to use king snakes, preferably, is because they're more active, better when practicing using a hook. The hognose snakes, they just don't care. So, but we did get a different one out that hopefully will move a little more. So we're going to try with this one as well. So if you want to do it again with one hook. Good job. Now I'll move on to two hooks. Alright, so with two hooks, I prefer putting one close to the front and another one instead of far back, like this. Because if you put it too far back, it's just going to slide off if it's a snake that doesn't stay on the hook well. And yeah, so I'll show you again. 1, 2, and the best thing is to just continue to practice being able to maneuver. So if I'm doing this with a rattlesnake, for example, I'm able to control where it's going and adjust. And that's the same with one hook too, but that comes in time. Great job. Did you do this with the king snake too?
Mm-hmm.
Two hooks?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was kind of uneven because I didn't have two of the same size hooked besides the two metal ones, but those were too big for it. So
Alex has a California king snake, but babyish. So she has had a little bit of practice. Alex did show her some at home with the king snake. But again, it's a baby, sort of like the milk snake, very small. So she does have some practice. So you want to try it again?
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and move on to tailing. But first, so one thing, let's say this is one that doesn't stand the hook well. That little adjustment would have caused it to fall off. But with one that does, doesn't really matter. We're going to move on to tailing using the hognose snake. So in tailing, if this was a wild snake or a new snake I'm working with, I like to have a barrier between, and I'm going to show you why. A technique that I use when working with a new snake. So even in the wild, if there's a little stone or a branch, I will put part of the body over as a barrier, because that initial touch can sometimes cause a reaction. Gives you enough time to at least move your hand away. But the thing with this snake at this size, if this was a cobra for example, it's pointless for someone with not much experience to tail, because they can whip around if they want to. Snakes will let you get away with a lot of stuff. That's why lots of these other people are able to do stuff that, if you know what you're looking for, the snake could do something if it wanted to. So that's the good upside with working with snakes. But again, smaller snakes, pointless in reality to touch. Yeah. So I'm going to show you again with this one. And what I do is a little bit before the cloaca and then readjust. But I'm not really grabbing, I'm barely touching. And with the bigger snakes, I sometimes don't even grab at all. The grabbing can cause a reaction again. And yeah, if you would like to try. So go ahead and do it again, but try to, let me just start again. So try again, but with this time, when you do readjust, or when you actually do this part, readjust the hook instead of keeping it where it's at, if that makes sense. Actually. Good job.
Or you can just grab it.
So let's say that there's no barrier. Another thing I like to do, a lot of people just grab, again, the reaction. If they want to, they can whip around. What I like to do is lift all the way up like this, and then gently. So right now I wouldn't do it if it's a viper. It's looking over here. But I would wait till it goes in a different direction, and then gently do it like that. But the reason I lift up is to throw it off balance a little. So if it does react, it's at least a little bit off balance. Now when you grab snakes, sometimes you'll get a defensive reaction and you may have to let go. You may even have to drop the snake. And there's situations where that's going to happen, and you gotta stay safe and do what's best for you. And that's why I usually hold my snakes either with a table or something lower, so that if something happens, at least it's not a far drop. But in reality, they're getting knocked off things. They might get picked up by hawks, so then let go. So do you want to, I'll show again, hooking. And again with the repetitive touch, instead of re-hooking, if I was too far up, I'd wait and then readjust. That's good. Try it again. Good job. So other things to consider, let's say you're doing that thing I was showing you earlier, using a barrier. Don't pay attention right here. Still watch what's going on up here. And then even if the tail gets tangled on something, just paying attention to what's going on up there, because people have made mistakes focusing on something else and not paying attention to what's going on up front. You did good. Now to the Nelson's milk snake. Moving on with the Nelson's milk snake. All right, again, we're gonna practice with 1 hook, 2 hook, and tailing. Snake this size will not be best for tailing if it was a venomous, but you're still gonna be treating it like it is. So again, like with the hognose snake right now, it's great. It's sort of in a defensive posture, and you can just do it like that. So rattlesnakes, I prefer being defensive out of being flighty, because they'll just sit there and you can just hook it and move it. But I also much rather prefer a calm one. All right, so you can go ahead and try to hook where you think, and I would say you should probably do it a little further down. Since it is looped like that, it's perfect. Great. Now if you want to set him down and try it again.
No, I'm gonna keep him in the air.
You're gonna keep him in the air?
Yeah.
Like you just don't care?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Good.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Now we're gonna adjust the snake so it hopefully is a little more difficult for you. Now another thing is being on this table now, it's gonna be harder to get under, so the approach would be to go further up, waiting, lifting up at the right time, and doing it. So you want to try? So actually when there is a loop, I do prefer the loop, even if it's on it. Maybe not on this table. Alright, that's good. Good job. Now we'll move on to 2 hooks. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why you scared him like that.
Hopefully to make it a little more difficult for you. So 2 hooks again. Recording, Alex?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna put this towel down so it's not as difficult to get under. 2 hooks. Again, doing it just right. Now this snake sometimes likes to fall off the hook, which is good for practicing. So hopefully you'll experience that behavior so you can get more practice. You see it's coming towards me, so I'm going from this way and readjusting. And another thing is to be aware of how the hooks are. So not holding it like this, because they can slide down. And one of my friends was bitten like that. So that's just something to be aware of, keeping it even with the ground. Go ahead and try.
Definitely wrong.
Right. Sometimes I've been in situations where it's crossed and you have to go with it if that's how it is. So that's fine. So in situations where it does panic and fall off over and over, I like to have things in place that if it falls, it's falling into something contained, because I don't know about for you, when things panic and fall, my instinct is to grab. That can cause a bad reaction, defensive reaction. So I like to eliminate that by having things in place. That's just a tip. But go ahead and put it down again and do it with 2 hooks. Again.
Again.
Hmm?
Again.
Mm-hmm. Good job. Now we'll move on to tailing. But once again, snake this size, not great if it was venomous, if you don't have experience. We're bringing this out to use a technique as with the hognose snake, using a barrier, putting part of it over, gently grabbing. So in that situation, if it was venomous, I wouldn't have even went. I would have waited or readjusted that it's crawling in and then adjusting. Another thing to be aware of is holding still, not repetitive touch like petting it or things like that can cause it to overreact. So I'd redo it, and then when you're readjusting the hook, a little bit further up, so probably about a third of the way down, quarter of the way down. So go ahead and do it one more time, and then we will move on. First, have the hook still on it, so if that makes sense. So in with the hook still on, and then let me show you real quick. So the hook still on, you see, and then what I like that you were doing was adjusting outside, which is good, instead of bringing it out and then adjusting. So it's kind of pointless using this thing. So that was good. Good job. So that's where we're going to end this video. The next video is going to be going over vipers. Subscribe. Be sure to check out the next videos. Next up will be the same thing, but with Alex, who's already been here many times training. So it'll be probably a shorter video. But stay tuned for that. Subscribe for more. Love y'all.